Now, I've been wanting to speedrun Meat Boy as Tofu Boy for a long time, ever since I found out you can beat the game with him. The problem is that I never actually beat the game, since I only played through the levels that he's allowed in. To really beat the game, you have to also beat the bosses and the final world, the end. Now, normally, only Meat Boy can play those levels. It doesn't even let you select your character when you play them. I'll explain how I got past this problem in a little bit. Like any other playthrough, after Dr. Fetus beats up and kidnaps Bandage Girl, our story starts at 1-1. So first things first, you may be wondering why I picked Meat Boy and Tofu Boy showed up. The short answer is, I cheated. Hey, I can explain! In this one, we're going to be using the cheat engine to help us out a little. Now, you can use the cheat engine to modify any value in the game. This means the life counter in the warp zones, the timer, even your character's height. Just to give you an example, here I'm turning on the value to make Meat Boy always be airborne. While I'm airborne, I can't jump. And here I'm turning on the value to make him always be on the ground, even when he's in the air. So you can see that he has those little streaks that he leaves behind when he runs. And now I'm setting it so that he's actually always on the ground. So now I can do this. But we're not going to be doing any of that in the run. The only thing we're going to be changing is the character value. We're going to hard code the character value to be 20. That's Tofu Boy's value. And we're going to be disabling these 3 lines of code. The only thing these do is change your character, like if you go to a warp zone or a boss level. So now we have our character value to always be Tofu Boy, and the code that changes that value is disabled. And this is how we achieve Tofu Boy's dream of replacing Meat Boy as the main character. Move over, Meat Boy. There's a new sheriff in town. Now that that's over, we can go back to gameplay. To beat the first level, we have to use a glitch. Oh, come on! I can explain! To beat the first level, we have to use something called the Alt glitch. When you press Alt, you go into another dimension, the Alt zone. Kind of like in Link to the Past, where you go to the Dark World. You can walk past some obstacles that weren't there in the light world. The only difference is that the Alt zone only contains you and the floor, or the wall if you're sliding or jumping to a wall. When you're done here and you press Alt to go out of it, you're grounded or sliding for 1 frame. So if you had a very convenient other trick that jumped every frame, you'll be able to jump in the air. This is the auto jump glitch. I use it all the time and it does exactly that. And now that that's out of the way, we can move on with our lives. You can see here on the next level, I'm immediately using the auto jump because I don't want my fingers to break from jumping so much. And in 1-3, you can see how I immediately combined the jump and the alt glitch to get past this gap. I could have just done the alt glitch there without doing the auto jump, but doing them both makes it easier. Now, since I already have a video beating most of these levels, I'm gonna skip a lot of the stuff we've seen before and focus on the new tricks that make this a speedrun. 1-5 is the first make or break part of this run. You have to make it up here and make this super hard jump. Oh no! I'm just kidding, I knew I wouldn't make that. But it's the second time through, boom, first try. And the rest of the level is smooth sailing. 1-6 is the first level where we're gonna have to do a new trick called the super jump. Let me break it down for you. First, you die standing, facing the direction you're gonna jump. In this case, I died to the void on the left side of the screen. Then you do the auto jump right before you spawn. Finally, you alt on the first frame that you can move. If you do these steps correctly, you'll get this. This is useful because you get to go super high and you get to clip through certain ceilings like in this level. Moving on, these next couple of levels are pretty normal. 1-9 can be pretty difficult because these blocks disappear and it can be hard sometimes for Tofu Boy to climb up fast enough. But with the right timing and spacing approaching this block, we can get these quick hops and make it up to the end. 1-10 is another super jump level, and it's really convenient that there's this death barrier on the left side here, so you can keep killing yourself over and over if you fail the super jump. And we're obviously gonna skip 1-11, right? You only need 17 levels to unlock the boss and beat this world. So we have the luxury of skipping 3 levels. 11 is the most obvious because it is the hardest by far, it is the longest by far, and I don't like it. Tommy's cabin is pretty cool because of the strategy here. We go outside, climb our way up, and there's a little bit of a problem. How do we get back inside? Well, we can clip into this block here. Pretty cool. And we're totally gonna skip 114. Tofu Boy is a really slow climber, so you're gonna see a theme where a lot of the levels that you cannot beat with him are vertical levels. And a lot of the levels I skip are also vertical levels because he climbs so slow. And the casual first try super jump to beat 115. This level is probably the longest in this world without the super jump. So I was kind of debating whether I skip it or not. But I decided to go for it. And as you can see here, it saves a lot of time when you get it. And 117, if you know, you know. There's one way to save time on this level that you don't do anywhere else in the run. And that is doing this. Yep, get the hidden bandage girl. That level has 2 bandage girls in it. We're going to skip 119 because it's really long. And after we beat 120, we can see why we're using the cheat engine in the first place. That's right, since Tofu Boy is the protagonist of this game now, not Meat Boy, he's the one who has to take down the bosses. And although this would be hard for him normally, with a little bit of luck and a little bit of help from his time warping powers, he can take this guy down no problem. That said, this level is pretty nerve-wracking because it's so long, and if you mess up any of these ults here, which are pretty precise, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Fun fact about the squirrels here, you can rescue them by ulting and they'll phase through the razor just like you do. Tofu Boy can finally do what he was made for and save some animals. Or at least he would if this wasn't a speedrun. And that marks the end of the forest. Now we move on to the world with my favorite boss, the hospital. And we're gonna start off pretty normal, just make it to the end. Ult outside so we can fall down to get the bandage girl really quick. It's pretty convenient when she's under you. And here there's something new. When you ult and there's a fan or something pushing you, the momentum builds and builds and you shoot up lightning fast, just like that. It's a good thing it works that way because if not, that level would probably not be possible. And we're gonna skip 2-5 because unlike Minecraft Steve, Tofu Boy does not like big gaping holes. These next couple of levels are pretty normal. Just clearing the obstacles or ulting to the end. Not much different from the old playthrough until we get to 210. Now, we used to think this level was impossible until we found out that super jump was a thing. Now what we need to do is kill ourselves facing right to these needles here. Super jump and we make it all the way up here. From here, it's a pretty hard ult, I'm not gonna lie. But if you can do it, you can beat the level. This one actually really hurts to miss because doing the super jump again takes a while. And moving on, there's nothing new in these next couple of levels until we get here to 215. The old route was going up and going around and doing all this crazy stuff. Turns out you can just alt jump through this big mound in the middle. We're gonna skip 216 because it is a really mean and long hard laser level. This level really shows the power of the auto jump. Yep, auto jump's so great, huh? And so's the ult. Look at us just zooming through these. We're gonna skip 220 because you guessed it, it's long and hard. We have the luxury of skipping long and hard levels in the forest and hospital. Not really the case in the later worlds. But anyways, this is Chad. I mentioned before that he's my favorite boss and you'll see why. You start off getting this key and we cannot start climbing until we see those bubbles. Because if we don't see those bubbles, the screen will not scroll. But we also have to climb while Chad is doing his animation because if we wait for him to finish, the screen will start scrolling too fast. We won't be able to keep up with it. Make our way up here. We time our alt jump to the second key while Chad is charging us. Immediately go to the right, out of bounds there. It's pretty convenient that there's a space there between the wall and the death zone, even though we can't see it. And then we get up to this very convenient ledge here that allows us to clip back in, get the final key, get to the final zone, and conveniently beat this boss. Also pretty convenient that the sun is shining and that the sun hurts the boss, and it conveniently doesn't kill him, only roughs him up a little. After that major streak of luck, the third stop in our journey is the salt factory. Now, a fun fact about Tofu Boy, he actually has a major iron deficiency. And one of the things that iron deficiency does is lower your blood pressure. Now, I don't know if Tofu Boy has blood per se, but one of the cures to low blood pressure is actually salt. So you would think that the salt in this world would help him, but it actually kills him for some reason. So anyways, the route here used to be to go outside and go around, but you can actually reach Bandage Girl from the very start if you ult just enough to the right. And 3-6 is a level where it's very easy to miss this jump here over and over and over again. So you have to really pause and recenter yourself to make it. Very easy to go down a downward spiral with this one. But if you make that jump, the rest of the level is cake. You have to be really bad to die after that. Like really, really bad. And we move along. Pretty standard stuff until we get to 311. 311 is pretty cool because if you keep holding right the whole time, Tofu Boy just barely outruns those racers. You have to be pretty precise with the ults, but if you do it right, you can get this. I said you can get this. Nice. And 312 is probably the second hardest level in the game. It's really hard to do consistently. And you start by climbing up and you have to land right next to the salt waterfall. The gap where you can land safely is very tight. It's actually not super tight on the first one, but the gap on the waterfall on the right is much smaller. That's right, each of these waterfalls have a different size gap that you can be in. And if you're too close to the edge when you start alting, the game will not register you as standing on the floor and you will actually fall down to your death. So that's just another thing to worry about. It was actually really frustrating figuring this out because I was just ulting and I was voiding out and I had no idea why, but it turns out I was actually falling. And we're gonna skip 315 because this level is impossible. It is so impossible that I predict it'll probably be the last level or one of the last levels we'll figure out if we ever figure it out. And we're also gonna skip 317. Now in Salt Factory we have 2 impossible levels, so we have the luxury of choosing one level that's possible to skip. And out of all those levels, 317, like if you put the second hardest level's difficulty at a 9, 317's difficulty would be at a 100. It's not even close. That level is so hard. And here we have the final stretch before the boss. We just have to try to not die as much as possible. These levels are not that hard, but if we're not careful, we can die anytime. And we make our way downtown to the boss. And this boss is actually a race against Brownie. And if you know Tofu Boy, he's not very fast. So how is he gonna make it through this one? Well, by doing what Tofu Boy does best, by cheating. We go through the wall, take a bunch of shortcuts. Yeah, that's right. Come on, Slowpoke, keep up. Look at this loser, all the way back there. Now, fun fact about Brownie, he's actually like a poop boy, kind of like Tofu Boy. So he's made out of poop. And if you look at his color, he's kind of yellowish brown. And that consistency of color is actually more akin to a vegan's poop than to a meat eater's poop. So, kind of makes you think, Brownie might be Tofu Boy's more processed brother or something like that. So with that out of the way, we move on to Hell. This world actually has the hardest stage in this whole run. But it's not this one. And it's actually not this one either, even though 4-2 is really hard. If you saw my casual playthrough, you might remember this as being one of the hardest levels that I had to do. Because of this alt here, that's so precise. But it turns out with a little bit of practice, I got it pretty consistent. I can do it over half the time, so that's pretty cool. And we're gonna skip 4-3, the only impossible level in Hell, believe it or not. And we're also gonna skip 4-5. This level just boils down to one really hard alt jump, and we don't have to put ourselves through that. Hell really just boils down to a bunch of razors that Tofu Boy can alt through, a bunch of cheese balls that Tofu Boy can alt through. 4-9 even introduces these portals that Tofu Boy can alt through. And this is just a normal day in the office for Tofu Boy until we get to 4-13. And then we're gonna skip it. That laser is a Tofu Boy cooker. If you're anywhere near it when you start or end ulting, it'll totally cook you. I found this route a while ago to get over that hurdle, but it is just so hard, and we have way better options for levels to do. Options like 4-14, where we have to kill ourselves facing left, and then super jump to go through this little wall and skip the entire level. The lasers take a second to activate, so we don't need to ult to pass through this one. When you combine the constantly shooting rockets, paired with the baby rockets that split off when the big rocket blows up, and the fact that we're getting closer and closer to the eye of the barrel, we end up with, by far, the hardest level in this run. I died so many times here. I was getting ready to throw in the towel, but just as I was about to hit the reset key, this happened. Moving on to 416 with probably the most convenient super jump, since we have this laser here to set up and Bandage Girl is right on top of us. And we continue on with the classic Hell shenanigans of alting through everything. I guess technically here we alt and let the rocket go through us. Even 420 has Bandage Girl in the room conveniently right next to us. And then we get to the boss. Little Horn, everyone's favorite. Now this guy is supposedly made up of meat boys that have died during these levels. They die, they go to hell, and they become a part of him, right? The problem is that Tofu Boy has been doing all the work. So where did these guys actually come from? That's another one of the unsolved mysteries of the Tofu Boy Super Meat Boy playthrough. But anyways, there's a really popular trick for beating this boss. There's a spot that if you stand, he will never hit you. He'll actually only hit you when he does his sweeping fist move, but you can avoid that move by doing another trick. And it's coming up right here. You pause, you go to exit to map, you cancel, and his animation will keep going and pass right through you. Aside from that, this boss is really simple. He does the same exact thing every single time, so he is by far the easiest boss in the game. And that's what they get for making a golem of dead meat boys. Imagine if they made a golem of dead tofu boys. That thing would be unstoppable. It would definitely be the hardest boss in the game. So after once again beating Meat Boy, I think this makes the score Tofu Boy 2, Meat Boy 0 or something like that. Dr. Fetus basically destroys the world by nuking it, and we move on to the 5th world, Rapture. Now with Rapture, the levels get a lot bigger, but that doesn't change our strategy of just ulting through every razor and every obstacle in our way. Eventually we get to 5-4, which we're gonna skip because it is, in my opinion, the hardest level in the light world, and it's not even close. There are so many precise positionings and alt timings in this level that it's not even funny. Not to mention that Rapture only has one level that I haven't beaten, so we have quite a bit of flexibility with this world. And we move on with a couple of easy levels. We skip the end of the elevator in 5-8 by alting. When you alt, you fall through the platform, so you don't need to wait it out. The 5-9 has a completely new route from my casual playthrough. It turns out that there's an empty space up here on the first tower. And it also turns out that if you get up there with Tofu Boy, you can then alt on top of Bandage Girl, skipping the entire level. Usually you have to get a key or something, I don't know. But anyways, 510's another super jump level, so we have to kill ourselves to these zombie meat boys. Oh yeah, zombie meat boys, what's up with that? We kill ourselves to them, facing left, you super jump, and alt to Bandage Girl. And 511's the last level where we'll super jump, so relish this moment, this is the last you'll see it. We super jump to get up here, because that's the easiest way to get up here. It makes it easier to get on the right side, and from the right side of this big mound, we can alt to the end of the level. The old route had us using that light bulb and alting to get it to push us, and that's super finicky. This new route is not only easier, but way more consistent. And we're gonna skip 5, 12, and 13. 513 was considered impossible, but I'm working on beating it right now. So if you want to see me beat that level, you might want to subscribe. And that was my first shameless plug in this video. Wait till the end until my second one. The next big run killer in our way is actually 517. This may come as a surprise, but if there are a lot of rockets on the screen, it makes the level a little bit hard. And if those rockets lock onto you, that makes them a little bit harder. Tofu Boy can't outrun those rockets, and he can't jump over them fast enough. He has to alt through them, that's the only way to dodge them. It is very easy to die to that level over and over, but I made it first try, another big reason why this run was a personal best. And then we have 519. The biggest reason why this run can be much better. Dying here loses a lot of time, and I died here a lot. Oh my god, how many times was that? I don't want to talk about it. So the reason why this level is so hard is, you guessed it, there's a lot of rockets. There's so many of them that when you come out of the alt, there might just be a rocket in your face and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh man, this level took over a minute. And when you consider that there are like 90 levels in this run, and the run clocks in under 40 minutes, that means this level took a long time. And we're finally here at every speedrunner's favorite boss, Larry. Now we start off by going immediately to the left of these razors before the first Larry launches, because that first Larry always launches at the beginning, and we want to blow him up as soon as possible. The rest of this fight is just us chilling here, waiting for these other Larrys to jump into the razors. They pop their head out every once in a while, and we just kind of wave back, entice them with our delicious tofu body. Eventually, when one of them does jump out, they shoot these teeth looking thing at us, and those can kill you if you're like asleep or something. So we just kind of preemptively jump every time they poke their head out, so we don't have to even think about reacting to them. So with that, we've conquered the forest, the hospital, the factory, hell, even the end of the world. So what's left after that? Now if you thought Rapture's levels were big, you ain't seen nothing yet. These levels are massive. They're as big as it's gonna get. And they're supposed to be harder too if you're playing the game normally. But Tofu Boy doesn't follow the rules. In this level alone, he's broken the laws of physics at least 3 times already. And he's about to do it some more. Right here, there's this little ledge that's a little hard for Tofu Boy to jump on. But amazingly, I got it first try. Wow, I made that look way too easy. And then there's this part here, the hardest part of the level. We have to get into this hole so we can alt over. I said Tofu Boy doesn't like big gaping holes, but he doesn't like little holes either. He has a hard time getting into it, but when he does, he can just alt over, just like that. And with that, the first stage in the end is done. And would you believe me if I told you that that is the hardest stage in this world for us? The next challenge, if you can call it that, is 6-3. The only thing quote-unquote challenging about this level are these alts that we have to do. They're a little bit long, so you have to count the big number, but aside from that, you just have to be consistent, and making it to the end is kind of free. Kind of free, unlike this, our final level. We just have to make sure not to mess up. The developers thankfully put that ledge there for Tofu Boy to walk on when he ults outside. Then we climb our way up. Do a little bit of a tricky alt over. Thankfully, it's not that tricky because the developers put another ledge for us to land on after we ult. But they didn't put a ledge on the right side over here, so we have to actually kind of time it. Then we climb our way up all the way to Bandage Girl, and thankfully the developers put another ledge right next to her. Alt into her and time. But wait a minute, I hear you asking. That's not the end of the game. Well, calm down, let me explain. That is as far as Tofu Boy can make it. Unfortunately, he cannot be 6'5". I've tried so many hours in this level, but as you can see here, he barely cannot make it high enough with the super jump to make it up here, and he's just a little bit too short with an alt jump going to the side to make it to the next platform. So, as of right now, this level is impossible. I'm not giving up though, so if you want to see me maybe beat this in the future, you might want to subscribe for that. But anyways, it's really frustrating. Trust me, nobody feels it as much as I do. I even tried beating Dr. Fetus with Tofu Boy, and it's a challenging boss. It's actually a super fun boss to do, and he can do it, which is the important part. So maybe one day we'll see a full game run of this game. But as of today, it is not doable. And that's the end of that. If you enjoy this kind of content, please follow the channel. I stream on Twitch and on YouTube sometimes. I'm still working on the schedule. Don't judge me. But anyways, I try my best to put out good videos, and I like to think I'm improving, so you can look forward to that if you subscribe. In the future, I want to try to beat the rest of the levels with Tofu Boy, and maybe branch out to some other games. So if you want to see any of that, you can follow for that too. Anyways, that's it for me. Bye. Oh, look at this PV, guys. Oh, fuck. Look at that. Wow, minus 2 minutes.